Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome back for another little review slash recommendation here. Taking a little bit of a departure from the horror or franchise and remake revisits, or even going back to the 50s, 60s, and 70s with an 80s throwback, which I hadn't done in a little bit, for a film which I don't really hear much about these days, with Less Than Zero from 1987, which stars Andrew McCarthy, Jami Gertz, Robert Downey Jr., and James Spader from back in their early days, of course, with them all being in their 20s, with Robert Downey Jr. and Jami Gertz kind of being the babies of this one at only about 22 years old each. It's based loosely, more on that later, on the book by Bret Easton Ellis, who later had his works American Psycho and Rules of Attraction turned into films as well. I highly recommend Rules of Attraction, by the way. The synopsis for this film is as follows. A college freshman returns to LA for the holidays at his ex-girlfriend's request, but discovers that his former best friend has an out-of-control drug habit. Ah, the 80s. Cocaine and crack. Alright, well, I heard there was there's definitely some crazy times back then, and this movie had been on my radar for a rewatch for quite a bit now. I believe the last time I saw this was well over 10 years ago, and I had pretty much no memory of it outside of a handful of moments here and there, because it was likely paired with a very nice wine that perhaps altered my recollection of it down the line. So this film kept kind of coming on to my radar, kept coming up in the form of a music video for the remake of Hazy Shade of Winter, recorded by the Bangles for this film's soundtrack. Keeps coming up as suggested music for me in YouTube, and it is a really great cover that kind of has a bit more energy than the original by Simon and Garfunkel. So similar to how the song Now by Ed 1980, seeing that video set against Some Kind of Wonderful kind of got me in the mood to give that one another try. Did the same thing with this one. Along with that, I'd also recently listened to an episode of Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum, where he was interviewing Andrew McCarthy, and this film came up and they went into a bit of detail about it. So finally hopped on Stars and checked it out, and it held up surprisingly well. So there were two things that I had to keep in mind kind of going into this per the interview with Andrew McCarthy. First thing was that they didn't really follow the source material that well. So if somebody read the book and really enjoyed that, they may not end up enjoying this film from what I understand. Second is that the experience of making the film was less than ideal for those involved. Outside of straying from that source material, many in the Brat Pack and that circle, kind of part of that generation of stars, especially Robert Downey Jr., were involved in some aspects of that 80s scene when it comes to the drugs and alcohol. They were in it, struggling with it, or, knew people struggling with it while they were making this film. And I really did enjoy this one. McCarthy plays our straight man of sorts coming home from college, seeing his friends getting involved in drugs. Some of them are pretty balanced, and it hasn't actually really negatively affected their lives just yet, but others, like Robert Downey Jr.'s character, are really sliding down fast with their lives in turmoil. So we get, like I say, McCarthy as our straight man, Robert Downey Jr. as the one who's in just a crap load of trouble, his life kind of sliding away, and Jami Gertz kind of being in the middle. She's on the edge of slipping if she kind of stays in that scene much longer, but for the most part is holding everything together. Now, thrown in on all this are that these characters are rich, like LA rich kids, with the film kind of beginning with their graduation from high school, and then picking up a little bit down the line. One was away at college, coming back to visit for the holidays, one not yet in college and working as a model, trying to decide what she wants to do, and one just having had all their post-high school plans really fall apart, and now they're involved in drugs. So there were three aspects of this which really stuck out to me in a positive way, which made this film work amazingly well for me. The first one was our trio. So McCarthy, Gertz, and Downey, within a very short time frame, they pulled me on board with their long-standing friendship with each other, and we even had a little event that's, of an event or two kind of causing their trio some trouble. So in this very short time frame, we introduce them, we get this split, we show their reunion, and their relationships come across as very genuine. The second thing was the soundtrack. So not only does this one have some great 80s hits thrown into it, but along with that, the score really weaves every scene together. It kind of follows the flow of their conversation and punctuates certain dramatic beats throughout, pulling me further and further into that scene and into the situations that these characters are finding themselves in. And a third thing, of course, is the style. So this 80s style represented is amped up a bit because of who these characters are and the wealth that they have. but it's not amped up to the extent of being like a parody, since it was filmed in the 80s, you know. I think nowadays when they try to film something that takes place in the 80s, sometimes they amp it up a little bit too much and it feels like a parody, but this one filmed in the 80s, really getting like the top end of design and fashion and how things were, especially in an environment for like these rich kids. This was just an amazing, an amazing way to bring everything across, to kind of see that excess and that wealth that they all grew up with. So these aspects really complement each other, and we kind of get on board with these characters, their relationships, the time frame that this is set in, and their lifestyle. It really helps one to understand the reasons why some, like Downey's character, can slip so far so easily, having that initial wealth to fuel that lifestyle until they slip further and further, finding themselves in debt, as he does, being in debt with a character played by James Spader. That's right, we got Iron Man in deep with Ultron on this one, and these drug issues. He's owing great sums of money to him in general, which, is so much that it's climbing so high that even with his wealth that he has access to, it's not going to be likely or even possible for him to actually pay him off. As also that, Downey Jr.'s character is struggling with the drug issues himself in a very major way. So another thing was that while I was watching this film, knowing what many know now about Downey's struggles in real life with substances, which luckily he pulled through and has not just become sober, but has become highly successful, of course, adds another layer to which viewers at the time that this came out may have not been able to connect with, since it's, 36 years ago. Seeing his character kind of sliding down further and further, compounded with information that's come out about the actor's previous struggles in real life, and hearing McCarthy's comments about the shoot during the interview on Rosenbaum's podcast, it is almost disturbing to see how bad this character gets, and how easily, the actor himself could have gone down that same road if he didn't seek help and ultimately pull through. But besides those real-life connections and everything, this film really does stand well on its own. Feel like the writing of the script, the direction, and the cinematography are amazing on this, and in particular, the performances of our main players. I feel like something that I don't see as often as I used to, which may simply be because, we have so much more content out there. Maybe something about that's getting a bit watered down as far as the talent involved. But it was something similar that I pointed out in my previous video for Jacob's Wife, which is saying a lot with very little, or even no dialogue. Some of the exchanges between our lead trio in this frequently come across as very subdued. These small changes in their posture or their expression to convey an emotional reaction, with no words to kind of hold our hand along the way. All these scenes and random beats sitting right on their shoulders, and they just knock it out of the park. And keep in mind, this was early in their careers. Robert Downey Jr. and Jami Gertz were only about 22 each. I believe Andrew McCarthy was 25. So it's early in their careers, and they did an excellent job with these characters, despite the troubles that they may have had during the actual production. And one final note on this is that this is not a happy story. It's one of those which may make you feel better about your own life in the way that, say, like Requiem for a Dream might, though not quite to that extent. But there's a lot of frustrating downbeats in this, seeing a character sliding further and further away while others are struggling and failing to lift them back up. But even with all that, knowing that this isn't a happy film by far and is just, it's a drama about the struggles one can experience even with excess and wealth, being given to them. And in some ways because of that access, because of having, a higher level of limitations there than what a lot of other people would have. It's a film with some really great performances that's more than worth checking out. And speaking of checking out, thanks for checking out this latest little video of mine and for sticking around to the end, as that, along with liking, subscribing, and hitting that little bell and sharing and all that stuff, really do help out quite a bit. Lesson Zero is currently available on Stars, which while you're over there, let me also recommend Party Down, which is a really great show. But yeah, if you don't have access to it, they frequently run different deals and trials and so forth, so you may want to hop on and check it out if you're looking for what to watch. So that's about all that I got for this one here. But what about you? Sound off in the comments if you've seen this, especially if you've read the book as well. I'm curious to see exactly how different it was from the book. Was the film at least in the same spirit as the book? And just in general, what did you think of this film? So that's all I got for this one. Thanks for coming by, and I will see you in the next one.